Good morning and welcome back to today's session on non-verbal communication. I know we have dealt with this in certain sessions, but I'm going to deal with it a little more elaborately today. I'm Shailaja Rao, soft skill trainer, and welcome back to this session. I know you would be wondering what is non-verbal communication. Some of you may know what it is, but still I'm here to explain a little more about this because, as they say, when you speak, it's only 7% of your words that are actually being communicated. The rest of the message is being communicated non-verbally, in the sense that when you speak, it's not just the words, not just the meaning of the words, but it's the body language, it's the way you smile, the way you make eye contact, the way you stand, your hands, your gestures, and all these things carry the message across. So if you want to be a good communicator, have good communication skills, you have to have good non-verbal communication as well. So let's see what all this hype about non-verbal communication is. So they say that 80%, or I would say even 90% of it is non-verbal. You can just, they say even silence speaks a lot. Don't you agree? When you want something from your father, and if you go and ask him that maybe you want 3,000 rupees for a trip, and he doesn't say much, he just keeps quiet and turns away and he's doing his own work. So does that tell you that he's agreed? Right? No, right? You know, you understand from his silence that he is not willing to give you those 3,000 rupees. So where did you get that information from? Non-verbal communication. His silence, the way he just turned around and went back to doing what he was doing. It gives a lot of information. It communicates a lot to you whether he agrees or disagrees. Similarly, the same thing happens not only at home or school or college, in the professional environment also. There's a lot of non-verbal communication going on. And you should be aware of what these gestures or postures or signals mean, especially when you go out into the outside world. At home it's fine, but when you go out, you should know what these mean, at least some of them, to understand the message correctly. So let's see, non-verbal communication is body language. Okay? Body language in the sense your body speaks a lot without saying. Generally, professionals like in the police or in, doctors, they're all taught, they have some sessions or they are taught the subject about body language and what it means. It's because the body gives out more information than you think it does, especially when it comes to, catching thieves or finding out who the murderer is, or, even the person who's telling lies. All these things your body language gives out. And it often overpowers verbal messages. Sometimes you can tell when somebody says hello, but they're not smiling. Can you tell whether they are actually welcoming you or they are not very happy to see you? I'm sure you can, right? Because the hello only is the word. There is no smile in their faces. There's no twinkle in their eyes or twinkling of the eyes. There's no smile on their lips. They just say hello just for the sake of it. And you can tell that they are not very happy to see you. But a person may not say hello, might just give a nice welcoming smile, and you feel a lot more welcome, isn't it? So that's what is non-verbal communication. And body language is not a universal language, in the sense that what means something in one country means something else in another country. What means something in one culture means something else in another culture. For example, all of us in the Indian culture, we're all Indians, so we know how the Indian culture works, at least most of us. How does it work? When we go to some adults or when we face adults or elders in the family, we're not supposed to make eye contact. It's rude to be looking into the other person's eyes, right? But In the Western culture, especially in the American culture, they say making eye contact is being honest, being truthful. So now there's a difference in cultures. But because we are dealing with the West, because we are doing business with the West, we are going abroad to work there, we should learn about those cultures and adapt to different cultures. When you go to America, they say when you're in Rome, be a Roman, right? That's an adage, that's a proverb. That means wherever you go, you have to behave according to their culture, according to their environment, not as you would in your own country. So eye contact probably is not done in our culture. Now it's changing slowly. And there is another thing they say that, children, they believe only in eye contact. When you speak to them, look, if you've known some kids who are below 5 or something, if you speak with them, they will only believe you or, trust you when you make eye contact with them. They'll turn your face and say, look at me while speaking. Why is that? Because they believe that eye contact is what makes the things truthful. And it's so. It sure is true. Because I'm sure you've seen a lot of movies. Even in the movies, the heroine and the hero, when they meet, and if she's trying to, because of some pressure, she's not in love with that person or doesn't want to meet him again, he says, look at me and tell me. That's true. Because, why is that? Because probably when you're looking at the other person, you cannot lie. Especially if you like them or love them, you cannot lie about it. So that is why body language and learning about body language, learning about non-verbal communication is very important. So what are the non-verbal communication that we should know about, that all of us should understand, at least be aware of? When you're doing something, what does it mean? What message does it convey to the other person? Most students don't know that when you go to a lecturer or a teacher, what is the distance you have to stand from them? People come very close and stand. That's not right. That is not good understanding of body language. If it is somebody you don't know, you stand at some distance, at least 4 to 6 feet away from them. So this is the kind of things that you should be aware of so that you don't make some blunders, especially when you go out to work or go to a different place. So you should know about these things. So what is included in nonverbal communication? Of course, facial expressions. We all know there are some common facial expressions. When we smile, we are happy. When we are making eye contact, we are actually listening to them. And when we are listening very carefully, you can tell by the way the head is tilted that you're actually listening. A lot of people, tilt their head to the side to show that they're listening, or even automatically, unconsciously, the head tilts to a side when you're, concentrating on something. So facial expressions and gestures. The things I'm talking about, the gestures I'm making, the gestures people make, the gestures. When somebody says this, what does it mean? Okay? What does it mean? It says, be very careful, or something like that. So pointing fingers is actually a very bad gesture. Never point fingers. If you have to point to something, do it with your open hand. That's a open-handed gesture. Pointing fingers at anyone is bad, even on the road, especially on the road. If you're abroad, if you're in Australia or America, and then you point fingers, it will be taken as a very bad insult. So never point fingers. And so many other gestures too. But one thing we should understand here is that some gestures that mean something in one place may not mean the same in another place. Like, the gesture showing this. When somebody asks you if you've eaten a delicious dish, or say biryani or something, and somebody asks you, how was that? Without speaking, because you don't want to waste time speaking, you're eating. Just give this. What does it mean in India? It means super, it means fantastic, it means great, it means very good. But the same gesture does not mean the same in some countries like France or Some countries where it means, if you do this, it means 0. See how it means different things? So you have to be very careful because all gestures are not universal. But of course, now with the coming of the net, internet and computers, the world becoming a global village where we're moving across for business, for studies, for jobs, we are learning about different cultures, different gestures, and we're becoming aware of them. So it's always good to know what some gestures mean. And touch, of course. Each culture has a different importance to touch. Some cultures, touch is very, very casually taken. Like in the Western culture, American culture, they shake hands, they hug. When they meet someone, they hug each other. Or, just even when they're saying bye, just give us a quick peck on the cheek or a hug and then move. But in Asian cultures, be it India or Malaysia or Singapore or, Japan, all these cultures, touch is considered a taboo in the sense that people prefer not to touch another person unless they're very close and intimate. So our gesture for welcoming someone or saying hello is a namaste. I'm sure all of you know that, but the thing is we are getting out of that mode now, but because of COVID-19, we are back into the namaste mode where we don't shake hands anymore. So everybody is appreciating or speaking greatly about the namaste greeting of the Indians, right? So touch is also a topic which, or non-verbal gesture which is different for different cultures. In the West, Europe or America, it's not, Australia even, it's not considered that important or, a taboo. They do it very, very frequently, very casually. But in the Gulf or in the Muslim countries, in the Middle East and Asia, it is done only when needed, when it is extremely important or unavoidable, it's done. Otherwise, we do not even touch our friends when we speak. We try to do the namaste and we say bye, but we do not touch hands or even hug anybody. So that's again a culture thing. Personal space and proximity. Again, this also differs from culture to culture. We do not like to touch people. As in Indians, we are Asians, we are very, very wary of, hugging people or touching people. But then, when it comes to space, we do not worry about standing very close to one another. Imagine, not now maybe, but a few, last year or years back, or 1 or 2 years ago, if you're standing in a queue for a movie ticket, you wouldn't mind sticking to the other person in front of you. You wouldn't mind jumping over them to get that ticket. If you're trying to reach a counter somewhere in a bank, in a college, in a school, you wouldn't mind touching another person, right? Because we do not have that personal space proximity thing. We are very casual about that. But the same thing differs there. In America or the West, they're very particular that nobody touches them while they are in the public. You cannot actually go and stand very close to them. You cannot touch them. You cannot touch their kids. Here, it's not unusual in a mall or in a market when if somebody is holding a small child, you wouldn't think twice in India to go and pinch the cheeks of that child to say, oh, how cute, how lovely. But abroad, if you were to do that in America or England or any of the European countries, you would probably be jailed for it because you're not supposed to touch a stranger. Be it a kid, older person, and you're not supposed to touch them. So you have to be very careful. So that's why when these software engineers are going abroad for the first assignment, they're given some lessons on things to do and not do, because they should not be getting into trouble. So they are advised not to touch anyone or stand too close to anyone. They are given these sessions for them. So we have, because it's important to know how different cultures react to different nonverbal communication. So paralinguistics, again, actually we were speaking about this even in the last class when we were talking about spelling and other things, pronunciation, but tone of voice. Even the tone of voice is very important when you when you're in your non-verbal communication. The way you say one word, it could be okay, you could say it in different ways, and you could be very okay with it or really not okay with it. So depends on your tone of voice, you convey a lot of information, whether you're happy with something or really unhappy with something. So posture and body orientation. So what is posture? You know, we are all human beings, so we stand in the same way. We stand on our 2 feet and 2 legs and we just move. So what is so important about posture? What does posture convey? Actually, the way we walk, the way we talk, sit and stand conveys a lot of information. If you've come in touch with any, if you go to a business and you see the owner of the place or the CEO of the place, the way he walks into his cabin, into his office, and the way he sits in his chair probably tells a lot about him, because he sort of walks as if he owns the place. And he walks very confidently, and then he goes and sits in his chair also very confidently, relaxing to the back and all that. But if the same thing, you were a guest, you wouldn't be so comfortable. And if you're an employee also, you wouldn't be as casual or as relaxed as the owner. So your body posture also speaks a lot about who you are. And lean forward slightly. When in class also, the teacher can tell when somebody is listening and when somebody is distracted and actually doing something else. People who are listening generally tend to lean forward a little. That's why we say when you're in an interview, it's good to sit in a chair completely relaxed with your back touching the back of the chair. It should have a sort of V to the chair, in the sense you just lean forward a little to show interest. Because if you're really interested, you lean forward. Even I've given this example even before. When you're watching the end of a movie or end of a climax scene, you probably won't be relaxed. You'll be waiting to see what's happening. You'll probably come forward in your seat, right? So the same thing, when you're concentrating, when you're listening, you sort of lean forward. That body language gives a lot of information to the person who's speaking. It tells whether you are keen listener or not. And open posture, tilt head, lean forward, uncross legs. So open posture is when you're sitting down. If you're sitting with your arms folded on in your chest, it means that you're probably not interested, not listening. Generally, again, this is also a culture thing. Earlier, when you had this, it meant you were subordinate. You were a subordinate, and in Indian culture especially, we would think that a subordinate who was below the superior, or your servants, or children in front of students in front of teachers, their hands crossed. They had to stand like that. But today, according to the body language study that goes on, they say that having a crossed arms tells that they are actually not open to any information. They are not open to any suggestion. So the best way to stand, if you want to show respect, is probably like this, with your arms not crossed, but just holding each other at the bottom, or just straight. So, and if you're sitting, never sit cross-legged or one leg on the other if you're sitting in front of a higher authority. Both the legs on the floor, and your palms generally in your lap, and lean forward, and tilted head. Tilted head, actually, when I think if you watch yourself when you're listening or watching a movie, you ask somebody to take a picture when you're watching an interesting movie. You probably have your head tilted to a slight tilt to one of the sides. It shows that you're keenly listening. Closed posture, head and trunk straight, arms folded, and if seated, legs crossed. If you're like this, it shows that you're completely attention, but you're probably not really paying much attention. Straight, arms folded. Arms folded, as I said, is not a, it shows a closed posture, and even cross-legged shows a closed posture. Eyes. You know, eye contact is also a very important thing. A steady gaze, a fairly steady gaze. But there's a thin line between a steady gaze and a stare. So make sure you're not staring at someone. When you stare, you don't even blink. But a steady gaze is when you can make eye contact, you can blink, you can see the other person, you can look away. You generally, a steady gaze is where you don't look at somebody for more than 3 or 4 seconds, and then you blink or you look away and then look back. So that's a steady gaze. Signals an interest in others. When you make eye contact, it shows that you're interested, especially when you're introduced to someone. Try to make eye contact with that person. There are a lot of people, when introduced, they don't look into your face, they'll be looking at what you're wearing or how you're standing or they're concentrating or something else. Sometimes people look over your shoulder when you're being introduced. It really shows lack of interest. And it's bad manners also to look somewhere while you're speaking to someone. You have to make eye contact with the person you're speaking with. And it also increases speaker's credibility. That means speaker makes eye contact while speaking to you, you surely can trust him. His credibility increases. So if you're a good speaker, if you want people to trust you, if you want people to believe what you're saying, you have to try and make eye contact. That's what most speakers do. Even in public oratory, when people are standing on stage and speaking, they just don't blankly look somewhere. They try to look at a few people, make eye contact with a few people. They cannot probably make eye contact with the whole auditorium, but at least a few people here and there. When they look, they try to look into the eyes and speak, because that establishes rapport. Facial expression. Smiling is a powerful cue that transmits happiness, friendliness, and warmth. Like I was saying, when you smile, and there's a thing about the smile, they say a smile is a curve that straightens everything, right? Suppose you've had a fight with your friend the previous day, and next morning you come back and you give a nice big smile. I'm sure half of that anger dissipates. It's lost in that smile. And if you would add a hello, how are you, or hello, let's forget about everything and start afresh or something, is forgotten, right? So a smile is something which radiates happiness, warmth, welcome, and friendliness. So not only that, even it shows that you're comfortable. Even in an interview, you're asked to smile when you introduce yourself. You're asked to smile when you meet with someone, because it also shows that you're very confident and you're comfortable in your skin, or you're comfortable in that situation. So smile as much as you can. And there's something else. I believe when you smile, you use very few muscles. But when you frown, when your forehead is all wrinkled, the face has to use a lot more muscles when you frown than when you smile. So don't, trouble your face too much. Smile as much as you can. Gestures. So this is something I was telling you. There are about 5,000 different gestures, approximately. Nobody can count them and say, okay, this is it. But around 5,000 different gestures, which mean different things. We cannot learn about all of them, but most common gestures we should be aware of. I've got a few here. I'll tell you about them. You can always go back. Even handshakes. There are about 25 different types of handshakes. And who would have thought that? You think just a normal handshake, that's it. But there is so much study that goes beyond, just the normal handshake. And each handshake conveys a different meaning. That could be a class in itself, a session in itself. So what we are doing here is people who give back head nods and gestures appear to be more interested. Even when you're in class, or when if a teacher is teaching and you have this, once in a while, the teacher feels happy because she sees that somebody is listening. You nod your head when you agree with something, when you're listening. Some of them do it just once in a while to imitate, but you probably can tell who is, just doing it for the sake of shaking their head and some who's actually listening. You can tell the difference. Quick nod helps the speaker. When somebody's speaker is speaking in a crowd, and by chance his eyes make eye contact with yours. If you give a quick nod, he understands that you are listening to him. Okay? Long nods distract the speaker in the sense that something like that. It sort of distracts the speaker. Or double nods cause the speaker to speak faster in the sense that something like that. When you make those double nods, it probably indicates that you're not fast enough or that it's the end of time, so you have to speak a little faster. So make sure you just nod your head once to indicate that you're listening. That'll do. So let's look at some gestures. As I told you, this gesture means very good in India and in some countries, but I think it's in Brazil or France, it means 0. So be very careful. And thumbs up sign. Thumbs up sign also is supposed to be that, even in India it says everything is okay, everything is fine, fantastic, and the thumbs down side says the opposite, says not okay. But the thumbs up sign also in some countries it means something very different. And when you do this, when you sort of make the gesture of quick succession, it means something very insulting. So try to understand what you're doing depending on the situation you're in. In India, it's okay. We say thumbs up, we say, did you all understand? If somebody, especially now in this online education stage, you have these thumbs up. So did you understand? A thumbs up actually says, yes, I did. Fine, everything is fine. So again, gestures. You all probably know who these are. This is Hillary Clinton, and of course, who wouldn't know him? Is Donald Trump. So Hillary Clinton, when she was at a speech, when she was leading some rally, so she was giving the arms up sign. It's sort of a V sign, which sort of symbolizes victory. So wherever somebody puts his hands up like that, it means they are actually winning, or they are on top, or they've just achieved something. Okay? Even you see this most of the time when sportsmen, when the 100 meters dash, or when they win something, they put both their hands up. Or even cricketers, when they win something, make 100 or something, they put their arms up. That sort of V symbolizes victory or achievement, so that is that gesture. But what is that gesture? We were just speaking about crossed arms, right? And from his face also, you can tell that he does not agree to whatever is going on there. He does not agree, he is not interested, he is not at all involved in that conversation. His eyes are also looking somewhere, his arms are, his body language says he's not at all keen on whatever is happening. He's close to that topic. See how much information just a picture gives you? Here you can tell she's happy, she's excited, she's winning something, and that is the gesture of a winner. Watch for these. People who are lying tend to use fewer gestures and touch their face more often and shift position more frequently. I think you can tell mostly when you ask kids, when 5 or 6 year olds, they don't know how to lie very well, but they're just learning how to lie. And if you ask some child who's just taken a few chocolates from the fridge and finished eating them, he still has chocolate on his face, but you call him and tell him, hey, did you eat those chocolates? He'll say, no, and he'll smile and he'll try to close his mouth and all that, and then he'll try to look somewhere else. And because he's saying no, but his body language gives him away. He tries to close his mouth, he looks somewhere else, he's smiling and he's trying to escape from you. So those are all gestures which show that he's lying. So when somebody is lying, you can tell because they touch their face, because body is such a thing that it probably cannot lie, And when a lie is being told, the body tries to suppress that by bringing the hand closer to the mouth somewhere here, or something like that they do, or something like they touch their nose, sort of close their mouth before the lie comes out, or something like that. So the hands come closer to the face when you're lying. And also you try to shift position, you try to move a lot to take the concentration of the listener away from what you're saying. So that sort of tells somebody that you're lying. And so face is the part of the body that can be most easily controlled and therefore disguised. Okay, you can sort of close your face, and you can. So it gives a lot of expressions. Even before you know it, you give out those expressions. So it's very difficult. If you're very upset with someone and then you think that you can forgive them, a slight smile appears. But if you want, even if you don't want to smile, you probably are smiling away, because your body cannot disguise those. Your face cannot disguise those expressions. Some gestures I've just copied and put them there. See, what does this gesture show? When somebody stands like that, what is it? Dominance, right? He probably is the leader of the team, or he's the boss, is in his own office, or sometimes the coach stands like this when he gets things done from his players. So that shows dominance. And what is this? It shows, don't come near me. People keeps people at bay. So this is also actually a very dominant gesture. This only people who are very relaxed, who are in their own territory will do this. I'm sure you've seen your fathers hold their hands like this and walk at home, or you see invigilators in the in the examination room. They hold their arms behind and they walk across. It also shows some sort of a dominance, and also the keeping people at bay. And then, of course, closed gesture, this or this. Or open gesture is with your arms open. So open gestures are generally, you can speak to them, they are, they welcome you, they are open to questions, they are open in every way. They're open-minded people. Again, open gesture. What does that gesture mean? Actually, clasped hands, and then there are two hands holding them together. When you see something like that, what does it tell you? Well, I'm sure you're all thinking the same thing. It tells you that there is somebody to protect them. There is somebody to take care of them. Somebody who is going to, nurture them. Generally, parents take their children's hands in their arms and try to show that they love them and that they're going to protect them. So whenever, generally, this is small kids, but politicians do that a lot. When you give a handshake, they bring their other hand also and pat you on the hand, because to show that, okay, I'm here for you, I'm there for you, that sort of a gesture. The person who's an authority or a person who's higher will probably do that, or can do that, trying to comfort the other person, saying, I'm there for you, I'll take care of you, I can protect you, that kind of a thing. Then, touch. Some people do not like to be touched, and some people are more comfortable with touch. So which are the cultures that don't like to be touched? As I was speaking earlier, which are the cultures that like to be touched or quite comfortable with touch? Greetings of different cultures, handshakes, all Western cultures. When I say Western, I mean America, Europe, and probably some countries in Africa, Western. Hugs, even them, bows. Again, Asian cultures like Japan and Thailand and all these, they have this greeting with bows. And in between, we have the Middle East. People hug each other, when they say Salam Alaikum, and we say Namaste. So there's different cultures. And some cultures are more comfortable with touching. Some people do not like to be touched. If you go to a Muslim home, I'm sure they would not like to be touched. Especially there's a gender disparity also here. Muslim men and women, the men hug each other, but the women are not supposed to, so they do something else when they greet the men or greet other women. So again, there is this gender thing also in some cultures, how they greet each other. I'm sure you can tell this is a Indian namaste, and their dress is all, I think, Rajasthan. You can see their turbans, Rajasthanis. Can you tell me, can anybody guess which culture does this? That is actually a greeting. Sticking your tongue out. That is a gesture of welcoming someone in the Tibetan culture. In Tibet, sticking your tongue out says that, hello, welcome. So, but in some cultures, sticking your tongue out, if you say something like this while speaking, it's supposed to be very rude, very bad. It could be an insult also. But in the Tibetan culture, sticking your tongue out is a greeting. In most Muslim cultures, they sort of hug each other thrice when they say, when they greet each other, when they say salam alaikum or whatever it is. But in some cultures, they do not, it's not always the touch. They try to put their hand on their heart. Heart is supposed to be a sacred thing, a powerful part of our being, of our body. So when they greet someone, they put their hands on their heart and greet each other. So you could see this also in some Muslim cultures, doing this. They may not be hugging each other, but they do this. And can anybody guess what that is? That's also a greeting. Where? I'll give it to you. It's in the Zimbabwean culture. In Zimbabwe, when two people meet, they do not say hello or shake hands, they clap hands. The person who greets first does it once, and the person in reply does it twice. So that's also a greeting in some cultures. Did we know that? Probably some of us didn't know that. So Zimbabwean culture, clap is a greeting, and a double clap is where you reciprocate the same greeting. Of course, you say something along with it. I couldn't get the pronunciation right, so I'll not try it out now. Again, these are bows. But see how different they are? I'm sure you can tell this is from, you can tell where this is from, even the language is there. Japan, right? Japan, where they bow when they greet others, they bow right from the waist. They bend a lot. They don't just do this, they bend a lot. From the waist down they bend. That's a Japanese greeting. And this is more like a Thai greeting. In Thailand, they do not bend from the waist, but they put their hand down. They do the sort of namaste, but they bend and, wish the other person with a bend of their head also. So this is a Thai greeting, and that's a Japanese greeting. Both of them bow, but in different angles or in different ways. Of course, we have the handshake of the Western greeting, and then in England, when the kings and the queens were there, they used to wear hats, a lot of hats, and whenever you greeted someone, you may not say hello, but you take your hat off and bow a little to show that you are saying hello to the other person. It was customary for gentlemen to tip their hats, just tip their hat and put it back on, especially when they're greeting a lady. Apart from the handshakes, of course. So they just tip their hats. That is also a sort of a greeting. And personal space and proximity. So actually, we did this a little earlier, but I'll just go through some of them again for your reference in case you've missed the earlier session. So intimate is 18 inches or less, 1.5 feet or less. When you're standing very close to someone, it means you're very intimate with them. It's either your own family or very close friends. You shouldn't stand close to others who are not your very close friends or family for less than, have at least 2 feet distance if you are not intimate with someone. Okay, it's reserved for close friends. Oh my God. What happened? And personal is 1.5 feet to 4. 1.5 feet is 18 inches to 4 feet is personal space. This is comfortable for conversation between friends. Just friends, you should not be sticking to each other. You should be at a distance of 1.5, 2 feet to 4 feet. Okay? That's where colleagues, friends, they speak at that distance. Social is between 4 to 12 feet. When most business people, they exchange their cards or their pleasantries standing at nearly 4 feet distance from one another. Suppose at a wedding, in business meetings, you don't stand even 1.5 feet. You stand at 2, 3 feet or 4 feet distance, where a handshake is generally 3 to 3.5 feet, because this is 1.5 feet and the other person's hand is 1.5 feet. So about 3 to 4 feet distance you stand in business meetings. In weddings, when you go for a social gathering, you need to stand about 3 to 4 feet in distance. And public, over 12 feet. Generally, 12 feet. If you meet somebody in the mall, people, when you're at 12 feet distance, you do not acknowledge one another. You don't even say hello. You don't even nod. Those are just strangers. See, at a mall or on the street, people barely acknowledge each other's presence. You're walking past. At 12 feet distance, it is very, you're actually a stranger. So at the most of the time, they give a shake or a nod of the head. It could be just an acquaintance, a nod or a shake. Okay, and public speaking, whenever there's on stage, people are at least 12 feet in distance from them. And then paralinguistics, tone of voice. This is another part of the body language that we should understand, is tone of voice, the pitch of voice, the rhythm, the timbre, the loudness, and the inflection. Inflection is whether it is happy or sad. So that is the inflection. So we have to understand all these things also when somebody is speaking. We have to actually keep our ears open to receive these messages also when somebody is speaking. Whether they're speaking happily or whether they're sad about it or whether they're just neutral about it. You can tell whether how they feel about some topic in the way based on their tone of voice. So thank you. So I hope you've had a lot of awareness on non-verbal communication and how people greet each other in different countries. So one thing we should all remember is that some gestures do not mean the same in all the cultures or in all the countries. They mean different things in different cultures. Even from in a country like India, from the south to the north, we have a lot of differences. Okay, so people in the north, they touch the elder person's feet. So that is also a non-verbal gesture, showing respect and gratitude and, bowing down to authority. So there are a lot of things that we should learn about non-verbal communication before we are comfortable in a different culture. Okay, thank you. Meet you again in the next session.